Hi, this is Richard from AgriFutures, and I'm here with Gary and Emily Williams of Hanawera Farm, and they run a business, Waterscape, where they do permaculture design consultancy work. So welcome, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us to your farm.
Oh, that's good.
And can you tell us a little bit about the role you guys do as far as the permaculture design and Waterscape?
Well, I suppose the first thing is this place here. We came here about 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So it didn't look like this at all. It was just very short grass, really run down, really wet.
A lot of rushes right through it.
Yeah.
Good,
Right
good,
where we
good,
are here was
good mushrooms.
was all pretty. Yeah, it was very degraded. It was just been a runoff block.
Okay.
And the hills along there were basically sort of grazed.
Yeah.
And gorse coming back over them and things like that.
Okay.
So the farmer wanted to get rid of it actually because of the gorse problem. And he just used it as a winter runoff. So we came here and we actually tented with the girls right here with, just about here where the house was over the summer.
Okay.
Did our observations and did our little surveys and looked at the lie of the land and what plants were here and what they indicated.
Were you doing permaculture design at that point?
Well,
Actually, we didn't
was,
know
really,
that it was permaculture design.
Okay,
At that point.
okay. So it was kind of the moving through the process on the land was helping formulate those ideas and drive you towards that kind of point of understanding.
Well, we both come from design backgrounds, so we were really interested in a holistic approach to design right from the beginning.
Yep.
So we did a lot of research into what would do well here, and we tried to incorporate a lot of different ideas into the whole thing. Gary was also interested in energy systems, so we wanted to incorporate those into the house.
Okay.
So lots of research, lots of original plans, weren't there?
Yeah, and sort of we did this whole process that years later when Brian and Joe, permaculture teachers, came here and they said, well, I think you should do permaculture course because then you could teach permaculture. So
Okay.
we didn't have any permaculture certificate in that. Okay. And we said, well, we've done it, we just did it anyway, you know. Why should we go to permaculture course sort of thing, really? Yeah. And so it did, cut a long story short, they actually came here and said, right, we're coming to your place, we're going to have a course here and you're going to be on it. But it was interesting in terms of like, it gave a sort of whole overview more.
Okay.
We had gone all through it, and I was also particularly interested in biodynamics. There's a lot of biodynamic sort of methods and approaches to regenerate the soil and regenerate the land. And the whole idea that the farm is an organism which you're going to be a part of, you know, rather than distinct from. And so there's a whole worldview behind biodynamics as well.
And what was it about your background before that? So if you were going into it and you set up all these processes on the landscape to help change it and design it, what was it about your background before? Because you hadn't done permaculture at that point, had you? Like, what was the kind of the driving ideas?
We knew about it. We'd sort of read a little bit about it, not a huge amount. But as Emily said, we both came from farming background.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we both went to the city and did design professions. So I suppose it was a combination of the farming sort of understanding of the landscape and that combined with a professional design approach, which is a little bit about what permaculture is design, you know, applying design to landscapes or to whatever. Yeah. So we sort of just, and those ideas were around because permaculture is not the only thing that's been around. I mean, lots of other ideas were around in the same sort of thing, and so we were doing that. But we had become particularly interested in biodynamics because we were in Napier, and of course Tarina was there, and we knew about that. And I was also really interested in water, and Ian Trisdall and his Healing Water Institute and things like that were in Havelock North as well.
Okay,
And we'd make contact with them, and we knew about the Clive, you know, the O'Hepper and that Clive and things like that. So we had some sort of exposure, I suppose, to that.
We'd also had the advantage of, we spent a year in Africa, and there we were trying to think about how we'd design our house. But of course you're influenced by what they would do and how they would respond to the environment. So we were actually also looking at designing in response to the environment. So that was quite...
so when we came here, those little plans we'd had in Africa we said, no, that doesn't suit this place.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
We actually changed our whole house completely,
Yes,
really.
because we realised we were influenced by the environment we were in at the time.
Yeah. And was that just spending time with a culture that was more
Quite different.
Yeah,
Yes.
kind of more in tune with their environments and designing in accord to that.
Well, not always. They weren't always totally in tune because they had actually changed from the houses that they used to live in before Europeans came there, and then the Europeans designed houses, but not always appropriately for that environment.
Yeah.
No, and in fact,
Sounds
part of the job is really, part of my job is really to help them to come back into villages, because mine was the water side, water supply, sewage, all those sort of things, it's the basics in that. Because they're trying to bring them back into villages again, and then how do they do that in the environment that they were in? And that, because they had been scattered, because not just European colonisation, but Arabic colonisation and slave trade, and that they've been scattered into the forest. And they were trying to bring them back together. Because there used to be really big cities actually in Mozambique a long time ago. But they sort of got destroyed by, say, the Arab slave trade first and the European colonisation and all that. So it was really interesting what they were trying to rediscover and regenerate, really, in their own country, going back to their own history, really. And I suppose that's probably influential in a way, in terms of like thinking about the nature of the place and the people and how they used to live there. And that. But,
so was that kind of water engineering perspective that was helping to kind of drive the design that was happening there?
Well, there it definitely was. Yeah. But you're involved in the village designs and that sort of thing.
Because your background at that point was landscape design, wasn't it?
Yes, I did landscape architecture. Yeah.
Okay, so that was kind of combining with the water engineering to kind of come at a more holistic kind of appreciation.
Sometimes we work together
things.
on different things where they involve both those.
Yeah. And is that what led to the evolution of Waterscape, kind of combining those?
It did really, didn't it?
Yeah, it did really, because although professionally we haven't done so many jobs together, which we might be could have, in our permaculture that we have, permaculture work has always been basically a team effort.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that experience in Africa helped lead to the evolution of what Waterscape became here as far as permaculture design goes?
Yeah, well, I suppose in terms of like why we came here a little bit as well, because we were in Napier and working in the city, so to speak, and kids born there. But we really came from farms. We liked the idea of a farming environment, but we wanted a good, healthy environment for ourselves and our kids and healthy food. And it was really hard to find organic food to buy. In those days, this is in the early 80s or mid 80s. And so we decided, well, we'll just have to go and find a place and grow it ourselves. And of course, in terms of what we could afford. And we looked around Napier area, but
it was quite expensive there.
Well, either the plains were so expensive or the hills were so dry in summer that you just couldn't grow things really. And I know people have tried there. So I'd always liked this coast.
And we knew that Manukau was a good growing area. From way back.
What is it about Manukau that makes it good for growing?
It was actually mentioned, wasn't it, in one of the National Geographics?
Yeah.
And I came up here on a field trip when I was at university, and they said this was a really good growing area. And so it does. It produces a lot of food for Wellington Market now that they've lost all the hut, because of course it's been developed.
But you worked at the horticultural research place
in the
here.
horticultural research
When you were
here.
Yeah, and that used to be based here because it was. It's just got the National Geographic was really interesting because they looked at all the different climates around the world, and they actually named Manukau Village. This is this American magazine,
all
right?
Places in the world.
As the best temperate climate in the world.
Really? Okay,
Yep.
wow.
Because it has this nice. It's a temperate climate, so it has seasons, but they're moderated. It has a nice mix of wind and rain and sun, and without being too extreme.
Okay.
And
But that's
so
pre-climate change.
well, we know what's happening now. But
Yes,
we do
we know
occasionally
that.
get strong winds, and we do have trees falling over.
Yeah.
But Wellington gets them down there, and Palmer's North gets them up there.
Yeah.
And we're protected by the Tararuas from the prevailing westerlies.
Yep.
Very occasionally we'll get an easterly coming over, the strong easterly coming over the hills, and the trees don't like that because they're not used to it, and we will get some damage from that. But mostly we don't get the severe winds, and we just get this really nice growing time. I mean, these trees love it. I mean, these poplars, I can't take them out.
If you want to take some down,
But I mean, they just grow
Yeah.
so fast here. I mean, trees just love this climate, and so
Is that what having a temperate climate means? Is this like most things will just grow really well because they're just not subjected to extremes? Or?
Yeah, but enough difference that we can go everything from stone fruit right through to subtropicals like tamarellos. Now, that's really rare to be able to do that, such a range of things. That's why food forests in this area is sort of so good, because you know, you have such a range of different types of trees and fruits.
The berries grow really well here too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
We do get restricted on some of the more subtropical plants.
Yeah, and that's why I have to wait until the microclimates develop before we could get the tamarellos to grow. You know? And so when we came here, then we had to think, well, how are we going to convert this rather degraded landscape into a productive, you know, really good, healthy environment? So that's when we used biodynamics. We did a lot of composting. We did a lot of composting in the orchard, for instance, which we now do very little, just maybe a little bit at the end of autumn or something, you know, end of summer. And we used the biodynamic preparations, and we did a lot of different sort of transition age, I suppose, you would say. And that, but the layout and the planning that was really important, though, in terms of how we sited the house and how we looked at the sun and the winds and how the buildings would relate to each other in terms of the activities, and how these veggie gardens, which are here, which is actually quite clay under here, and we had to build this up because of that. But it really worked well with the morning sun on here and coming through to the orchard there and that sort of thing, and how the activities work together. All right, and that.
So we do have to now think about taking out some trees, though.
Right,
so it restricts the
things
sun.
have grown.
So far.
Provides shelter, but some of them have got a bit too big.
What is the context here? So you've orientated the house north to
it's northwest, really.
Northwest.
Slightly northwest. Yeah, but it's longwards to the sun, basically.
Okay.
And the girls' bedrooms are probably the better ones because they get the morning sun.
Okay.
We're more around the afternoon sun. But,
and then where we are here, this is the northeast of the house, is it? So
well,
more the morning sun? Or?
Well, the north is really up here. It's basically straight along there.
Okay.
So the house is slightly to the west of north.
Okay.
And that. And in the summer, the sun's right over here and right overhead. Going right from here right away around over to here.
Okay.
Whereas in winter, it goes much further up here. But because it's lower in the sky, but it's further round, we don't actually lose that much sun.
Okay,
Except these trees are now starting to not drop their leaves soon enough.
And we could, for example, we could have put the house further down, which would have meant we got more morning sun. But only a little bit more.
Maybe.
But it would also put us into a frost zone, because here the frost rolls off the hill.
Okay.
So, and we see frost down at the bottom of the paddock.
Okay. So you're positioning your house in an area where there's not going to be frost for the vegetable gardens and things?
And the
comfort
fruit
of
trees
living
and that thing. And having this gap here in the orchard was to allow the frost to drain off from the hill, and the water attracts it as well, so the pond's there. So all these things sort of relate together in that sort of way. So there's a lot of different things you have to think about how they all sort of relate together, how they work, you know, as an overall a sort of more holistic design.
And we knew, for example, the main wind comes from the northwest, but that's also where we look out and we can see the sea and the mountains. So rather than putting shelter belts along there, we just did smaller areas of planting just to break up the wind.
Okay, kind of staggered plantings.
So that you still get the view. And but you still get the wind being broken up, and also the importance then of having a strong southerly shelter. That was the first shelter we put in, and that also helps lift the wind up over the house. So
and it slopes quite steeply up towards these hills and a lot of the properties up there on the hills?
Okay. Most of it's along that hill. It's quite a steep hill. It's a foothills of the Taurus actually. It's very it's quite steep.
And what were your thoughts around design and management of that?
Well,
trees.
I mean, trees. Retire it, wilderness. I mean, we have plantations because we can grow trees so fast here, like that weed called Pinus radiata. That's our superannuation fund. In fact, it's up to the point now we can mill it now.
Okay, good.
In fact, Matt coming round here now, he's looking at these poplars, but he can also mill our trees for us, and we'll talk to him about that as well. But so we believe in real superannuation funds, you know. It's actually real trees actually growing, rather than banks and share market and that. So there's quite a bit there. plantations, and I did different types of trees as well,
Okay.
just to try them out really. The main bulk is pine, but you know, we've got a lot of macrocarpus and Botanica ones, we've got Japanese cedars, and I've actually got some sequoia and that. In fact, you did a little bit of native planting, totras and tawas.
For timber too? Or?
Yeah, and in fact it's been planted and managed means we can actually mill it under the Forest Act because it's been planted intentionally as a plantation, even though it's native timber.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, but the other thing we have done more recently is two things really. There's Queen Elizabeth covenant, QE2 covenant on the back native area, which was retired completely on there. And then this whole carbon credits thing, which is actually a nightmare in terms of the bureaucracy of it and getting carbon credits. But we went into that and we'd only just got it all set up. And I remember getting this email saying, you may want to withdraw now because actually it's not going to get anything out of it, basically is what they said. It's all this bureaucratic nightmare.
Right.
If these guys didn't know what they were doing and that, and trying to set it all out, and then they said, oh, you might withdraw because the rules are such. And the price went from $20 a unit down to about 2 and then down to about 20 cents or something like that because the stupid government didn't know what they're doing. It's coming back a bit now because they've changed the rules a bit. But the main reason that I stuck with it was it actually covenanted most of the rest of the forest. Because we were doing native forest mainly, not the pine. And there was this permanent forest sink initiative. And so that meant that would be well, they say in perpetuity, 50 years is in perpetuity in our society, you know. But it's a 50-year covenant over all the rest of the native forests as well. So I like the idea of just that it would have that covenant on it. Yeah, rather than the carbon credits themselves.
So looking at the overall design of this property, so you've got your driveway coming up here and your kind of grazing paddocks there, and then it comes up to your house where you've got your your vegetable garden and then your orchard, and then that's leading up into your forestry that kind of blends in with the native areas that you've kind of retired, and that's more up into the steeper areas.
Yeah. I mean, it is sort of zoned like in permaculture, but zones aren't concentric, you know. Zones relate to the landscape. And that, and we bought the house further up here to be more central to the diversity of this landscape, rather than just in the flats, you know. And then we set it up here beside where this frost-free zone that rolls off, and relating to the hills. And for instance, the animals go right from here on the flats through sort of access ways up to the tops, and some of the areas also, like the cattle go in the winter. And I really, some of those are mainly native trees, but I've been really interested in how the native forest has come away with the grazing. Because native forests were grazed, I mean moa grazed them and all sorts of things, right? And they can take grazing. In fact, in some ways you wonder whether grazing is part of the whole dynamic of the ecology.
But you have to manage it.
But
yes, if you left them in there, it would be too much. So
it's all about management.
Well,
stock is all about management. I mean, that's in terms of grazing or rotating them round and that sort of thing, and rotating between the sheep and the cattle, and then the chickens that we also rotate, the meat chickens with on the paddocks down here, and so that's all about rotational grazing and that. So that's really important from the sort of organic management approach as well. But so we basically try to do things that suit the environment. So we have only a small amount of grazing really, a few cattle and a few sheep, and that, and because that's sort of what sort of fits or suits. And most of the hills are in trees, one form or another. And because we have firewood coppice in as well, so there's an access track at the bottom of the hill here, and that accesses basically those slopes just above the track are where we coppice trees. So that's a continual supply of firewood.
So it's sounding like, so you're kind of trialling out these ideas on the place here and getting it set up and kind of formulating these ideas, but at the same time you're working professionally in your own areas as an engineer and a landscape designer, and then that kind of morphed into Waterscape and offering that as a business?
It worked. It worked. I was doing sort of lifestyle blocks anyway as a landscape architect. I was doing quite a lot of design, working with clients, which was different to working for the government where we did larger scale things. and through working through that, and then various engineering problems would come up, and it just kind of evolved from that to us working together, doing landscape, permaculture designs. And we took a different approach with that, because with permaculture design we want to make sure that the client is really intimately involved with the design process. So we would always give them options, so that they could then choose from the options, and we'd talk about whether you could combine something from one option and something from another. And so they really got involved in the process, and that's, I mean, permaculture people like to be anyway involved in the whole process. So
but I think also,
well.
what I think was really important about it is that you're not doing a design for these people. You're helping them to understand their place and become more aware of the nature of their place and what can happen there, and therefore options is really, really important. Because if we go back to, I mean, it's a funny word, but you know, ecological literacy, but it's really trying to help them improve their own ecological literacy about their own place. And you're really just an advisor and a helper to do that. And it's not up to us as a professional to go and put our stamp on it and say, well, I think this is the best thing to do, obviously, so you just do that. It's quite a different approach. It's sort of saying, well, how can we work with these people? How can we give them ideas, give them variations? That's why I think really options is really important. It's basic to design. I mean, every design professional looks at options and evaluates different options, pros and cons. That is the design process in a nutshell, right? And so what's important is that you give those options to the people who are actually going to live there and implement it, whatever, and so that they can therefore work out themselves. And every time when we do this, they always choose some mixture. We've never had anyone said, right, that's it. No. They always say, oh, I like that bit and this bit, and then they actually make their own plan.
And they can see the whole design process a lot more, and you can point out the pros and cons of each different design, that some may have an emphasis one way and some another.
So how does that process work out? So if you've got all these different concept ideas and they've selected different ones, do you then kind of morph them into something and then consult them further on that and modify it?
Sometimes it needs help to actually make the knit, but each option is a viable option in itself. These are not sort of like straw dog options. Right? They work because there's many ways of doing something. You know, many ways of doing something on a landscape, many ways of getting people's sort of what they want to do on that place. What different ways of doing it. So they all work, and we actually learn by comparativeness. We learn by comparing. If you've got just one thing in front of you, and that, you know, you don't really learn much from it. You say, oh well, that did seem to work, perhaps, or it didn't. And that's the way our brains work, because we've got, you know, two sides to our brains. We're constantly comparing. We're constantly thinking about things and thinking about it in different ways. You know, and sometimes it's more intuitive feeling for it, and sometimes it's more sort of a rationalising, analytical thing. And so we're constantly doing that. And to me, the permaculture process is also about that. It's also about, like when you first go to a place, like when we came here, we're just getting a feel for the place. Just coming here with the kids and tenting and do a little analytical stuff like surveying and things, and putting a peg in the ground and see where the sun goes and things like that. You know, but mainly you're just observing. You're keeping your sort of, what's this place like? How's it tick? How do we relate to it? All right, and I think that's really important. That initially, the sort of engaged observation, I call it, is much more intuitive. But then when you go through the design process, to explain it to other people, you have to then be more analytical and rational. It's really hard to explain intuitive feelings. Say, well, I just think this is good. And they say, well, why do you think it's good? You know. So I think as you go into the process and you develop options, you become more, I suppose it's more analytical, more refined, and it's more sort of trying to be more clear about why it might work.
So